Good morning from Cobble Hill Gardens. This is Mateus. I'm going to talk a little bit about drip irrigation today. And I use drip irrigation on the farm because I have a well that only produces 1 gallon a minute. Thankfully, I have a 2,800 gallon cistern, but still I have to watch every little bit of water. So here's an example. I have 5 beds in this greenhouse, and I think 11, I have 15 runs of 50-foot drip tape. And then I have another greenhouse next to here that's another 6 runs, so 20 runs. And um, I use very little water. I forget what they call it, a Q value for every 100 feet of the drip tape uses certain gallons per minute. But I use a lot of water. In the peak of summer last year on all my beds outside, plus these ones, I was using 500 gallons a day. So every little bit counts. So drip irrigation, I love it. Also known as drip irritation because it does a lot of things, and that's what I'm here to talk about. That can be a little bit annoying. So the first thing is because it's in the sun and it's black, what happens is, and then water runs through it, it tends to do this. If you look down at it, wobbly womps. So you need to do a couple things. You need to landscape staple it, and you also need to stake it. Now, landscape staples are, where are we? Here's one. You can buy these pre-made, but what I do is I buy galvanized fence post wire. And it comes in 100-foot rolls. And I buy the galvanized stuff, not the black stuff, because it's nice and shiny. And I always see it because if this gets caught in the rototiller, it tends to get a little bit grumpy. You use these every 2 big steps. So I guess maybe every 10 feet or so. And you put it over your drip tape. Hopefully you can see this. Boop. And that kind of keeps it from moving around. The other thing that I do is that after it's been sitting in the sun a bit, make sure my fittings are super, super tight. And then what I do on each end is I stake it. And I put these stakes in to create maximum tension each way so it stops the wobbly womp. But you got to make sure your fittings are super tight. And then that way you get a dead straight tape. And it has worked for me. Depending on the uh, density of your soil, I use 18-inch stakes. These are just board that I have that was 3/4 inch, so it's 3/4 inch, 3/4 inch. And I just hammer these in, and then I put them, make sure that they are on the fitting, not on the tape, or else the tape's going to get ripped. They are under quite a bit of tension, and so that stops it from doing the irritation things that come with drip irritation. Landscape staples, which I use galvanized fence post wire. I get it from Rona. Can't seem to find it anywhere else. And I stake it. The other thing here is an example. So I bought really expensive irrigation timers, and they're Wi-Fi enabled, and they have a high flow warning, and they'll shut off because one thing that drip irritation will do, drip irrigation, there I go slipping, is that under that tension and that pressure, fittings will pop. And I've drained my cistern before because I was away on a trip and it just kept going, 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 runs the pump dry, super bad stuff. That's all protected now. So the ones I got are from Link Tap. They're expensive. They're $120 each, but they have a high flow sensor, low flow sensor. They can also adjust there's a ton of features you can change in it. You can change it according to the weather. So it taps into the weather network. And if it's below this temperature, I want you to water 20% less. If it's above this temperature, I want you to water 20% more. Or you can set whatever the percentage is and you can set the temperature. So that's super handy. That way it auto manages itself. But the big one is it has a flow meter on it, and it'll tell me how much water I'm using, which is critical in my situation. And if a line blows, it'll stop the water and be like, hey, this timer, it says that there's a problem. And then if I'm out of town, I can send the neighbors over and be like, hey, in this area, there's going to be a fitting that blew. Super important. Um, the other thing is, so I have 20 lines running, and that flow meter will tell me right now when I started an hour ago, I was using 7.2 gallons per minute. I went around and tightened all the fittings and replaced some that were just like 5 years old. And there's just these little drips that will happen. You kind of saw it down here. I'm going to try and show. Um, See how wet it is here? I was working here, but this area tended to be more wet because these fittings were loose. Any dripping you see right now is from emitters. So I tighten these all up, and I have a lot of fittings. I'd estimate over 100 fittings. Went around, tightened all of them, and they went on just like a millimeter. And I was able to reduce that by zero point 0.6 gallons per minute. And I water for 30 minutes. So that's like 18 gallons I've saved just by tightening the fittings. So you always got to make sure your fittings are tight and to recheck them every once in a while. I find for some reason that when the water is running, once you get good at this, if you can loosen the fitting, you don't necessarily have to loosen it, but if you try and tighten it while the water's running, it lubricates it a bit and it gets it in that extra millimeter that really sinks it down. And the last thing about drip tape that I would say is a lot of drip tape that's sold is sold by a thickness. And the one that I find everywhere is 8 mil. And it lasts one season. It's super annoying to get into the fittings because it's too thin. And um, the main part is it just doesn't last. And so I always buy the 15 mil drip tape and it's thicker. And what I also find is that I can get into the fitting properly. And also, it seems because of that extra thickness on the wall, it's double the thickness, it it just locks down and doesn't drip. And so get the 15 mil. A lot of people will be like, oh, you need to replace your drip tape every year. Yeah, if you're using that 8 mil stuff. If you're using the 15 mil, I have stuff that's in its third year, totally running fine. So that's what I do. One other thing that I do while I'm thinking about it, you didn't see it on this drip tape, but on any drip tape, new drip tape that I install, I buy a, a liquid oil pen. Sharpie sells them. I buy it in white and it's oil based. And what I do is before I install a new line is I mark where each emitter is. Now, Toro, the company that makes this stuff, will say, oh yeah, we're every 8 inches. It's not every 8 inches. It'll be like half an inch this way, half an inch that way. And then it kind of like gets muddled along 50 feet. And so if I'm planting, hand planting stuff, I know exactly where to plant because I can see where the emitter is from the top. I wish they did that at the plant. It'd be so much more effective. I'd pay extra for it. But it's a bit of an onerous process, but it's oil based and it will stay. It won't wash away. And so that way I know exactly where I can plant stuff and where the emitters are in those cases. So that's my little bit of information on drip tape. I use 8 inch spacing and I'm starting to do tarping. I have there's both a truss manufacturing plant as well as a hardware store near me, and I'm able to get tarps for free. And I'm going to quickly show you. And this is when I hand plant. It doesn't work with the paper pot transplanter, which is a bit tragic, but the paper pot also is supposed to be 8 inches and it doesn't always do 8 inches. So this is what I have here. The reason I have it up right now is for some reason this half of the bed is like packed full of thistle and I'm weeding it right now, but this chokes out the weeds. And what I've also noticed is I planted this lettuce at the same time as the lettuce over in the other greenhouse. And I have the white side up. And when the lettuce grows, it's my theory that the light will come down, bounce, and give more light to the plant. So when I do this, I can actually use less drip tape. Like this has 4 runs in it right now. But when I pulled this up yesterday, I think I can get away with 3, which is great because, like I said, I'm trying to save every little bit of water I can. So in order to make these holes, what I did was I have a 3.5 inch hole saw and I run it in reverse and then I just make the holes. If you run it in forward, I'm going to give you a guess as to which one I ran forward and the rest reverse. So that's my quick primer on stuff with drip tape and how to make it work. You can buy it in 1,000 foot and 4,000 foot rolls. Size my farm, I need 4,000 foot rolls. And um, that's what I have to share today. And I just saw a new leak, so I'm going to deal with that right now. Hope that's helpful.